Hey everybody, welcome back to the Crypto Club podcast. This is Gons, and of course we are here with Hobo as well. Say hello, Hobo.
Hello, hobo.
Okay.
Okay.
Hey everybody, and welcome back to the Crypto Club podcast. This is Gons, and of course we are here with Hobo as well. Say hello, Hobo.
Hello, hello.
All right, and we've got a pretty good podcast for you guys today. We've got some really interesting stories. Of course, as you know, we pick up new stories and developments across the crypto space every week, and we go ahead and sit down and talk about them every Friday. So make sure you guys subscribe or tune in so you can catch the next one. And we'll also be having some future guests on future episodes as well. That'll be pretty nice to also get like some other insights from different people in the space.
Right.
Mr. Hobo, if you want to introduce the first topic for today.
Yep, of course. So, unless you've been living under a rock, chances are you've heard about Elon Musk's proposition to acquire Twitter and take it private for, I believe, somewhere around $40 billion.
Whew,
Yeah, you know. But yeah,
man.
this story is talking about not just him acquiring Twitter, but something less talked about is him wanting to authenticate every Twitter user. And he's mentioned on his own Twitter that bots on Twitter are a huge issue, and I totally agree. There's plenty of verified accounts that are impersonators and take advantage of people that don't know better. There's been plenty of scams run on Twitter that way. People losing lots of money.
Oh man, can you imagine how many DMs he gets from like fake bot accounts every minute?
Right, right. Yeah, I mean, I don't think most people can DM Elon Musk on Twitter. I'm sure his account is set up in a way. Those bigger people have to follow you for you to DM them or something like that.
Yeah, but I mean, even like just the all the engagement that he gets probably is just
Right.
absurd. So, yeah, I mean, number one, Elon is the goat, and I'm actually pretty happy that he purchased Twitter. Aside from that, though, as far as the main focus, which is authenticating Twitter users, it makes sense. I mean, at the end of the day, I think I read it was like close to 50 million Twitter users are fake profiles or bots.
Right.
So it does become a problem, especially when you factor in that, un- and I don't know if this is a good thing or a bad thing, but a lot of the younger generation is getting a lot of their news, information, um, and current events from social media. Twitter being one of the biggest. I mean, there is some level of responsibility that I think Twitter needs to consider when it comes to that. And so bots just basically add 50 million users worth of, you know, targeted information, misinformation. There's so much that goes into it. So I do understand why he wants to do it. I think it would improve the platform. At the same time, though, at what expense does that come to users as far as authenticating themselves? Do we see kind of like a KYC system similar to crypto?
Yeah.
What do you think?
Um, I don't know. I think it will require some sort of authentication that you're truly a person. It doesn't have to be to the extremes that like KYC and exchange KYC or sorry crypto and exchange KYCs are, right, where you have to like upload your social security number and your address, all of that. It could be done through like a credit card number. But something else worth mentioning is Twitter just admitted to over exaggerating or sorry overestimating their users the last 3 years. And so basically Twitter's admitting to not being 100% transparent with their data, which I mean I don't think is truly that surprising, but it's just interesting to see that come out around the same time. And it's also worth mentioning that although Elon is making the moves that he's doing and Twitter says they accepted it, it is not written in stone, and they've adopted the poison pill as shareholders, which essentially gives them a lot longer of a runway as far as time to work out this deal. And I mean, it's not 100% sure that it's going to go through. A lot of people are treating it like it is, at least in the news. Headlines you'll see like Elon Musk is buying Twitter, yada yada yada. He can still change his mind. Shareholders can still change their mind. It's not
Unless
set in
Elon
stone.
changes his mind, I definitely see it going through. I mean, this is probably one of the largest acquisitions we've seen in decades, I think. Um, I have no doubt it'll go through unless Elon backs out of it for whatever reason, which Elon is a hell of an unpredictable man. So
That's for
you do have
sure.
a point there. But the other thing, I mean, kind of worth considering as well, that kind of came to mind when you were talking is, even at what lengths do you KYC, and then unfortunately the reality of anything KYC or authentication is your data is now in the hands of that host, in this case Twitter,
Right.
right? So if we're verifying credit cards on Twitter, I mean, we all saw earlier this year, or I think last year, I'm sorry, that a lot of major Twitter accounts were hacked. Basically, some hackers got access to some profiles that had access to admin tools.
Right.
So there is a security level there as well that I mean, at least from a crypto perspective, it does kind of make it seem um, counterintuitive
Mm-hmm.
to what we're used to, but it's curious to see how they'll implement it for sure.
Right. I mean, just thinking about that Twitter hacking story, that'd be quite a fun one to talk about maybe next week or something. There's some juiciness in that Twitter hacking saga.
Yeah,
But
that'd be a good one for sure. But yeah,
anyways,
other than that, we'll see what Elon does. But
right. Yeah, so let's dig into the article a little bit. It says the narrative. Tesla CEO, SpaceX founder, and Boring Company creator Elon Musk has come to terms with the board of Twitter to acquire the company and take it private. Twitter occupies a fairly important role in public discourse, particularly in crypto. Musk's pending takeover of the social media platform is worth watching, especially for anyone who is actually involved in crypto Twitter. And yeah, I mean, if you're not familiar with crypto Twitter, basically it's a bunch of anonymous accounts pumping and dumping small cap coins. I mean, of course, there's all sorts of different aspects, but in to sum it all up, I think that's a rational explanation.
you know what? It's probably like, so if crypto's the Wild West, crypto Twitter is probably like the local bar that all the
Right.
cowboys used to drink at and talk and and have gunfights. Like
Yeah.
that's what it
Yeah.
feels like.
Yeah, that's funny. The saloon.
Yeah, the saloon. Thank you.
Yeah.
Crypto Twitter's the saloon
Yeah.
of the Wild West.
Totally. Totally. Yeah.
Um,
So,
it it would be cool too to see Elon adopt the crypto Twitter aspect more, because that is really, I mean, he's big on crypto, whether he
mm-hmm.
wants to share that publicly or not. But it would be really cool to see him kind of grow Twitter more towards cryptocurrency.
Right.
That would be really cool.
Yeah. Definitely. So, yeah, moving on with the article here. So, the Bird site basically has been largely focused on what the CEO of Tesla buying it means for free speech and bots. Something else caught my eye in the press release announcing the transaction. In a statement, Musk said, "I also want to make Twitter better than ever by authenticating all humans." And this is touching on what we just previously talked about. Does this mean that Musk wants to get rid of anonymous accounts entirely? And how would this work in practice? It seems that authenticate here would have to mean collecting some form of personally identifiable information. If it's as simple as checking a box or filling out a CAPTCHA, that doesn't seem so bad. It's another story altogether if authentication extends to checking a license or passport or credit card to verify that there is a real human on the other end of the keyboard. So yeah, that's just tying into what we just talked about. It's really to what extent will there be KYC? I mean,
Yep.
people can. hire offices and just farm captchas and still get tons of Twitter accounts. So, I mean, if he's really looking for authentication, I'm not so sure that would be the route he would take. But of course, this is all just speculation, and only time will really tell.
Ooh, that's a good point too. A little bit further down, it says a reporter, Melissa Chan, points out that governments interested in identifying dissidents or activists may try to leverage influence over Musk so that they can basically get people's information since it's going to be stored on Twitter. So that's another kind of double-edged sword when it comes to authenticating KYC, PI, whatever they're calling it.
Right. Yeah, and it all comes down to how centralized or decentralized Elon Musk wants to behave with this acquisition, assuming it comes to fruition. I mean, I'm sure there's also instances where, even exchanges, there'll be instances where a government will essentially subpoena information on specific users, and if I'm not mistaken, they are required by law to hand that information over. So it's not particularly something out of the ordinary, if it's used in the way that it currently is with other institutions.
Yeah, definitely.
So moving down to the closing the transaction, the other question I have is whether the Securities and Exchange Commission has a role here. And this brings me back to the asterisk from earlier. Musk hasn't actually bought Twitter yet. He and the Twitter board have agreed to a transaction whereby Musk will acquire Twitter and take it private. This could take up to 6 months, according to Twitter CEO Parag Agrawal. Plenty could happen in that time. Musk changing his mind, which, let's face it, isn't exactly out of the realm of possibility. And that is definitely true. You see this in the boilerplate language of the addendum to the Form 8K filed to the SEC. Additional risks and uncertainties include those associated with the possibility that the conditions of the closing transaction are not satisfied, including the risk that required approvals from Twitter stockholders for the transaction or required regulatory approvals to consummate the transaction are not obtained. The form also cites the potential for litigation and the ability of each party to consummate the transaction. In other words, if shareholders sue or regulators, or if it turns out Musk can't leverage his equity or whatever, the deal could be called off. However, these scenarios don't seem likely based on some informal conversations I've had so far. And from what I've read in other sources, I believe Elon Musk has already secured $22 billion in funds, kind of just preparing for this deal. Almost, or not almost all, but so much of his net worth is just tied up in Tesla stock, and he's having to take out loans on it and sell some of it, and all of that. But that pretty much sums up the Elon Twitter story. It's definitely going to be interesting to see how this situation plays out. There's going to be a lot of speculation. There's going to be a lot of people saying
it's Elon,
things.
so we'll be talking about it next week, I'm sure. It'll be a new development.
Right. But I mean, really, it's just going to play out how it plays out. Nothing's for sure. Anything that's talked about is just as likely to not happen as it is to happen. So really, only time will tell here.
Yep.
Anyways, moving on to the next story here. We've got a Twitter thread from Mr. Crypto Felon, and this is it's quite the interesting story, right? Like, this guy bought a domain for $16 and he sold it to a multi-billion-dollar centralized exchange. He basically turned $16 into just under $500,000 at $434,000 just for a website domain he bought in 2017.
Man, I love this story for so many reasons. I was the main person involved and tasked with acquiring CoinScan's domain, which was a whole mission on its own. So I got to really familiarize myself with how acquiring domains work and everything involved. And I gotta say, after doing all that and working so hard to negotiate and finalize a deal for the CoinScan domain, which took probably over a month, almost 2 months,
Oh, for sure.
to see what Crypto Felon did here is just like really inspiring and really kind of sums up the crypto spirit of just diamond handing, and
Yeah.
I was
For
so
better or
impressed by
worse,
this.
right?
Yeah, so if some of you aren't aware of how domains work, you basically purchase a domain. The most common site is usually GoDaddy, and so sometimes domains are parked there. Other times they are owned by individuals or companies already, and you can hire GoDaddy. GoDaddy will act as kind of your advisor slash agent in a way, and they'll go out and reach out to the owner of the domain you're interested in. And basically, what they're really doing is just emailing the domain and saying, "Hey, is this available?"
Right.
GoDaddy makes an absurd amount of money doing this
Yeah.
because really all they're doing is just emailing somebody for you and then negotiating the deal, and then they act as like a middleman.
Yeah. And
And of course, they get a fee.
they charge $100 for it.
Yeah, they charge $100 just to reach out for you.
Yeah.
So it's insane. But it looks like what happened to Crypto Felon, to sum it up briefly, and I'm sure Hobo will link the full tweet so you guys can go read all the details and stuff.
Yep.
But
In the
basically,
description.
yep, in the description. But basically, he bought this, I believe, in 2018. He bought the
2017.
domain for $16 in 2017, so more like 5 years. Bought it for $16, diamond handed it this whole time, and then he gets a random email from GoDaddy saying that somebody has offered him $500 to purchase the domain, and he basically tells him like, you can screw off because I've been holding it for so long. $500, I'm not parting ways with it. And it doesn't seem like he discloses the domain or who the centralized exchange was. All we really know is that the domain ends in .us. So typically the most expensive domains are .coms. So this story is actually also really interesting because it was a very high price that this centralized exchange ended up paying for a .us domain,
Right.
which is what he purchased. So he basically goes back and forth with GoDaddy because obviously they reached out to him, so he's not really interested in selling it, especially not at that low of a price. So he ignores them for a while, and he eventually replies almost jokingly, from what I gather on his Twitter thread. He's like, I'd be willing to part with it for 10 Bitcoin. He even threw an LOL in there. And sure enough, they end up replying back. So I guess the agent for the broker service from GoDaddy's like, so I'm going to relay back to my client that you want 450,000 US dollars, which is the price of Bitcoin at the time. And Crypto Felon's just like, sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
So at that point, he's just not even expecting anything. And then he gets an offer for $200,000. At this point, Hobo, I think 90%, if not not even actually 95 to 99% of us would have taken that $200,000. Would you have taken it?
Yeah. I mean, that's $200,000 from $16.
Yeah.
Not bad.
And out of nowhere, right? So I mean, this is like realized profits. It absolutely insane. I think 99.9% of people would have taken it, and I wouldn't have blamed a soul for taking it.
Right.
My only guess on why he didn't take it, because I mean, ultimately, it does sound like he's this Giga Chad diamond hander who's not going to sell for less than $1 million, right? And I mean, to an extent, I think he is. But I have a feeling it was a really large central exchange. because he did mention in the Twitter thread that it was a multi-billion-dollar central exchange.
Mm-hmm.
So when you have that kind of info on who the potential buyer is, it almost makes you go, this is worth a little more than 200K to you, right?
Right.
So I think that was paramount in his decision to stand his ground on this. So he just keeps going on and basically just diamond hands this domain, basically tells him to F off, and it goes by a few weeks, and then they up the offer to 350,000. He still doesn't take it, and then he tries to leverage the fact that Bitcoin is volatile and that they should take his 10 Bitcoin offer, because at the time it went from being 450K to 430K, so they would save 20K if they bought it then versus before.
Yeah.
So he ends up waiting a week later after that, and long story short, he ends up pretty much selling it for 435K, which was his 10 Bitcoin at the time of closing the deal. What a Chad. I mean, through and through, I was so impressed with this guy and his resolve. Again, I mean, not to, this is just speculation, right? But to an extent, if, like, for example, it was FTX.US, yeah, I wouldn't have sold it for 200K either. I mean, we'll never know, probably.
Yeah.
But I'm sure that definitely helped in his decision to, play the hard game.
Right. Yeah, definitely. Super interesting story. I mean, there's a whole culture of hustling domains, and it's not really something you hear about too often. And a story like this pops up, and hey, maybe it's not too bad of an investment.
No, he absolutely killed it.
Yeah.
And in true crypto spirit, which is like why I really love the story. I mean,
100%.
This guy's like, nope, you are paying me my 10 Bitcoin. I'll see you in 2 weeks when you come back with it.
Right. Yep. Domains to the moon.
Yep, buy some domains, guys.
Yep. So moving on to the next story here, we're talking about a Ukrainian government ready to accept NFT donations. If you guys aren't familiar, they received and have been receiving millions of dollars in crypto for, I'd say, over a month now. I mean, when it first started, I want to say they got like 6 million in a couple of days, which, I think is a big win for, just showing the real power of crowdfunding that crypto can have, right? Because it's all anonymous. You don't have to go through banks. You don't have to worry about borders. And you can just send money. So getting into the story, we've got the Vice Prime Minister of Ukraine and Minister of Digital Transformation of Ukraine tweeted that the Ukrainian government will accept war effort contributions in the form of non-fungible tokens, donations, and purchases via the official Aid for Ukraine crypto fund. Individuals can donate cryptocurrency, fiat, and now NFTs. So far, the initiative has raised over $60 million, according to the website, which is absolutely huge. I mean, I don't know, when you look at the 36 billion or whatever it was that Biden was asking for to help Ukraine, like, pales in comparison to that. But this is just through the power of people. This is presumably no government intervention in these donations. This is all $60 million just raised from individuals, which is, I think it's amazing that much has been raised to help out Ukraine.
Yeah, no, it's really awesome, and it goes to show you how powerful crypto is, like you said. I mean, you can immediately help somebody within seconds by transferring funds worldwide, and you're not going through these charitable organizations, which most of them, end up costing your contribution 50%, 70%, 90%.
Right.
Depending on if there's greed involved. But I mean, obviously there's operational costs, salaries and stuff that have to get paid. So that comes directly out of your contribution. Whereas with crypto, it's just direct peer-to-peer. I mean, there's nothing better than it, period.
Totally.
So really awesome that they're doing that. And also, I wonder if they're going to get any Bored Apes or anything cool.
Yeah. Looks like they're showcasing a CryptoPunk right here. I'm not sure if that's they actually
Yeah, I
got
wonder if they
that.
received that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, huh.
But very
But yeah,
interesting nonetheless, you know what I mean? Especially NFTs, which are quite illiquid. You know, of course, you got to list them for sale, and then someone buys it. Uh, you know what I mean? Regardless, it's definitely.
helping. Yeah, I wonder
Yeah.
how. On a funny note, I wonder how Ukraine is selling them. Are they just like
They're
floor
just,
pricing them,
they're,
undercutting it like crazy?
yeah, they're just
Like they
dumping
get a
it.
bored ape. Yeah, they get a bored ape. Like the floor's 100 ETH, and they list it for 75.
Yeah. Yeah. You,
Everybody's like, Ukraine's dumping.
right, right.
Oh, wild! I love this space.
Oh, I know. It's funny. So many, I don't know. It just always feels like an adventure, you know, even though there's so many people just sitting at their computer, right? Like,
Yep. Zelensky's on open sea, undercutting floor prices.
yeah. Yeah. Can't make it up.
No.
All right. Well,
Ooh,
let's move on to our Apecoin story. If you guys aren't,
this is a good story.
yeah, if you guys aren't familiar, the Bored Ape Yacht Club NFT collection launched Apecoin a couple of weeks ago, maybe a month ago. You know, I want to say it launched. Of course, it got sniped when it launched and like quickly spiked to like 20 something dollars, but almost instantly fell back down to like $6 or $8, if I remember
Yeah, it was
correctly.
about 6 to 8.
Um, you know, I mean, it's been something that people have anticipated for so long, lots of speculation about it, and then all of a sudden it came out of nowhere, you know, and recently it has just been ripping despite the state of the market, right? Like if we take a look at Bitcoin, I mean, we're down from 47,000 to 38,000, almost a $10,000 drop since what, the beginning of April. Just purely down. You know, I mean, it's not just Bitcoin. If we take a look at like the Nasdaq, you know, not looking good. Ignore my squiggly lines, but yeah. Anyway, anyways, clearly market sentiment's not great right now, and I mean, Apecoin has, you know, nearly 3x with all this news that it's got surrounding it right now.
Well, and it makes sense, right? At the end of the day, I've always said it, and I'll continue to say it. Even though Bored Ape started as a hype NFT wave, whatever you want to call it, they are introducing some actual utility behind their NFTs and also their Apecoin, right? So the whole reason it is, exploding recently is because of the land auctions. So I mean, yeah, it tripled. I mean, I think it went almost up to $30 per Apecoin.
Yeah.
So it goes to show you that regardless of what the market is doing, the market will always set a price for real utility projects and tokens, regardless of Bitcoin and Ethereum, if it's like a really valuable and true utility.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, like, yeah. And I think that's something people don't acknowledge enough. You know, I mean, everyone's scared about the bear market, but really, if you are agile and do thorough due diligence, you know, I mean, there's coins that perform well in every kind of market. You know, I mean, sure, it's much harder to find them in a bear market. You know, the euphoria is not there. You know, in a bull market, everyone's a pro trader, of course. But
Yep.
you know, it gets a lot harder in a bear market, but it's still definitely possible. It's just up to everyone as an individual to make their own decisions and not just buy into what Soldier Boy is telling you to buy.
Yeah, I think adding on to that, in bear markets, it really comes down to fundamentals, right? Which goes back to utility, technical analysis, versus in a, like you said, in a bull market, everybody's a pro trader, everybody is winning, and at that point you really follow the volume and the masses. But in the bear market is where the real successful people are made because they stick to fundamentals and they set themselves up to win, so that when the bull market does come back around, they're in a much better position to leverage what they've gained.
Totally. So, see, digging into this article here, the non-fungible token and metaverse sectors have been the bright spots in an otherwise sideways crypto market in 2022, and proof of this comes as the Ape token hits a new all-time high at 2260 on April 28th. It actually broke this the next day, as we mentioned, peaking around 26 or 27, I believe. The steady bullish momentum for Ape is in large part due to the upcoming Other Side land auction being held by Yuga Labs and Animoca brands in conjunction with the Bored Ape Yacht Club NFT project on April 30th. And just for reference, I believe Animoca Brands is roughly a $3 billion market cap company. Yeah, I'm not sure about Yuga Labs, but definitely some massive players. Getting on with the article here, we got the Other Side launch will consist of a Dutch auction style sale, and only know your customer approved wallets will be able to participate in the sale of the first 100,000 land parcels. All sales will be paid for using Ape, which is clearly helping to drive demand for the token higher as interested parties accumulate the token in anticipation of the sale. Wallets that already hold a Bake or Mutant Ape Yacht Club NFT will be able to claim the land parcel for free for 21 days after the auction without needing to be KYC approved to claim. Ongoing governance votes within the Apecoin community have also helped increase demand for Ape, a clear demonstration that Bake and Make holders are looking to get more engaged with the direction that the ecosystem will take in the years ahead. I think this is really showcasing one of the strong suits of crypto, is the implementation of DAO systems. It's something that, has been conceptualized before crypto, but really has not been able to be practiced at such a large scale without the technology of crypto. So it's, cool seeing communities really being able to guide the direction that their investments are going.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, one of the many benefits of crypto and what the technology can bring to the table, and Lord knows what it will bring to the table in the future, because it's really limitless. It just depends on technology and developers coming into the space and really finding the true potential of crypto.
Right. Yeah. I also think it depends a lot on regulation, how much power governments will let it have. Obviously it's in every government's interest to maintain a certain level of power, but it's also in a government's interest to, innovate and boost their economy in these innovative sectors. And so it's, it's a balancing act, and it'll definitely be interesting to see how it plays out. But moving on to the next story here, we got Fidelity offers Bitcoin as a 401k investment option. Fidelity Investments has become the first retirement plan provider to allow cryptocurrencies in the 401k accounts that it services, starting with Bitcoin. This investment option will become available by mid-2022 to 23,000 employers that use Fidelity to administer their retirement accounts. Since Fidelity has $11.3 trillion in assets under administration, making it the largest retirement plan provider in the U.S., this move represents a major milestone in the mainstreaming of crypto. I think this is super interesting, right? At this point, everyone's grandparents have probably heard of Bitcoin. Chances are they don't quite understand it, but for Fidelity to offer it as a 401k investment option, everyone is going to understand Bitcoin to a certain degree.
Yeah, I think they're also appealing to the younger generation, right? Although interestingly enough, it seems like millennials have been pretty good about saving and contributing to a 401k, actually.
Yeah.
So that was pretty surprising to see. But yeah, it's a natural progression of what's going to come for crypto.
Right. Yeah, no, I definitely agree. We're really starting to see the snowball continue to roll and get bigger. And yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how big it gets and where it lands up or where it ends up.
Yeah, for sure. It's crazy because, I mean, traditionally 401ks, they don't necessarily have the volatility of Bitcoin. So curious to see like if the early contributors of 401ks, once they do implement, um, Bitcoin, I'm sure it's not live yet, but curious to see how their 401k accounts will fluctuate with Bitcoin being a part of it.
Right, right. It's a volatility that a lot of people are not used to. Let's go back to the Bitcoin chart here. In 2020, Bitcoin was below $5,000. 2021, it peaked at $63,000. Went back down to 28. Went back up to 69, and we're back down to 38. So your portfolio is swinging by 50% every year.
If not more, yeah.
Yeah.
Imagine you're like 60 and just looking at your retirement account, you're probably stressing out
Right.
instead of like enjoying your retirement.
Right. Right. But really, if charts show anything, it's just it grows over time, and I think looking at the logarithmic chart definitely helps with that.
No, yeah, of course. I mean, all jokes aside, the reality is, as if Bitcoin continues this pace and it becomes this well adopted, when these people are 50 or 60 and they're ready to retire, I mean, Bitcoin isn't going to fluctuate nearly as much because it's just going to be so large of an asset class.
Right. Right. And I think as it becomes more regulated, it'll be less volatile as well. You look at stocks, like sure, Netflix will drop 30-40% in a day or two, but that is a one-off situation. Even Bitcoin
Yeah.
has low time frame pump and dumps that are just make for a lot of volatility, very hard to navigate, and very stressful for people that like to watch their assets.
That's crazy, actually. Now that you mention it, Netflix, I mean, it dropped a lot in one day. I don't know if have we ever seen that in crypto on like Ethereum or Bitcoin
Oh man,
to
look.
that scale?
Yeah, yeah. Look at. This liquidation candle on December 20, like 10th, and
Mm-hmm.
there was also the liquidation candle on May 21st. Looking at the daily, went from 53,000 to just below 42,000 in one day. Which I guess is
Yeah, but see, that's not that's not nearly like what happened to Netflix though. Like that's actually something I'm thinking about now. Like even even something as well regulated as stocks, you saw Netflix drop over 30%. I don't think
right.
we've seen that in crypto.
Yeah, no, that's a
That's
that's
actually insane when you think about it.
yeah, that's a good point. Let's go ahead and analyze that real quick. Actually, I see I got the daily chart pulled up here. What, how much percentage is this? Yeah, so that's about a 22% drop in one day. And then we'll go check this one as well. 30% drop in one day on the 19th of May. And way back when Bitcoin was way less mature of an asset, you got these, oh my, 40% drops in a day. But I don't think that's fair to count back here in just because of how immature
What year
Bitcoin
was that?
was. Let's see. That was 13th of March 20. So yeah, that looks like the COVID black swan. 40% drop in one day.
That was in 2020.
Yep, March 13th or
I see.
12th.
Yeah.
So
Although I'm trying to zoom in. Yeah, it did around 35-40% as well.
Yeah. So, I mean, if we're looking at the daily chart on Netflix, you got massive gap down. Um, yeah.
Yeah,
I
that
mean,
was crazy.
40% in a day, and that was just after a. Oh, let me fix this here. That was just after a previous 28% drop. So,
Yeah. Whew.
yep. I mean, it's funny every time Bitcoin crashes, there's always people screaming that it's going to zero. But, I mean, you got Kramer telling you to buy Netflix at the top, and then you lose.
And then he dumps on you.
Yeah, God, Netflix is down so much.
But yeah, really.
Holy. Oh my God, 70 to 73% since November. Man,
Oof.
R.I.P. Jim Cramer.
Well.
Well, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, just really crazy to see that happen in the stock market. I mean, these drops that we saw in Bitcoin, that was when Bitcoin, like you said, was in its infancy stages. So, I
Right.
mean, I really almost, I hate to say it, I don't think we would ever see that in Bitcoin as well, just because of where it's at and kind of like all the buy pressure that it has as far as the institutional and, even some retail. I don't think we would ever see a 40-50% drop.
Right. Right. It's worth mentioning as well that none of this is financial advice. We are simply two podcast hosts sharing our thoughts. Um, but I don't know. I am of the perspective that anything can happen. Maybe we do dump 50% in a flash crash. Maybe Russia decides to nuke something and everything goes to zero. Who knows? I don't know. I don't think anybody knows. All these people shouting like they know exactly where Bitcoin's going to go, or exactly where anything's going to go for that matter. No one really knows. Of course, there's technical indicators that have a possibility to play out, but at the end of the day, the market will react how the market reacts. And that is
Yeah.
how I see it.
Whatever happens, happens. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously anything's possible, but yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, basically. So let's go on to the next story here, talking about BlackRock launching a blockchain industry ETF. Names crypto as one of three big opportunities. And for those that don't know, BlackRock is the world's largest asset manager, and it's launched a blockchain ETF. So essentially, this is allowing people to invest in crypto technology without actually owning digital assets. It's essentially an ETF of some crypto-oriented companies. You know what I mean? A lot of the times, the value of those crypto-oriented companies coincides very similarly to how the crypto market is doing, right? Like if you look at MicroStrategies and the price of Bitcoin, like it lines up quite closely. You know what I mean? Of course, Michael Saylor, crazy for Bitcoin, and it, I believe it's the biggest thing on his balance sheet by a lot. But just offers a securities style investment into the crypto world.
How do you feel about BlackRock?
I don't know. I think I don't like how much real estate they're buying.
Mm-hmm.
They're kind of scalping it out of the hands of the average Joe. But you know what? I don't know. The market's going to play out how it plays out, just like I said earlier. And Yeah, I don't know. I haven't dug into BlackRock too much. I've heard some things about it, but honestly, not familiar enough to really make a solid statement on it.
Mm. Yeah, I agree. I don't like their practices as far as the real estate market goes. I guess something in this article though that kind of does make sense though is the fact that BlackRock, which is a massive, massive real estate entity, is so heavily interested and quote bullish on crypto
Mm-hmm.
is probably a good sign. Um, am I happy that it's BlackRock, offering this? No, but um, it's one of those things that I mean, it almost may create like a trickle down effect where it could, drive more retail and more awareness to crypto and help propel it forward as well.
Right. Yeah, and I mean that's a very good point. It is the largest asset manager in the world. Calls
Yeah.
crypto one of three big opportunities. I mean, if that doesn't tell you something, I don't know what will. So, just digging into this article here, it says BlackRock has officially launched a blockchain-focused exchange-traded fund, also known as an ETF, that provides investors with exposure to crypto and blockchain industry without needing to directly own digital assets, or in other words, cryptocurrencies. On Wednesday, the world's largest asset manager, which currently manages approximately $10 trillion in assets, added the blockchain and tech ETF, IBLC, to its iShares product online. The 4.7 million ETF does not directly own cryptocurrencies or digital assets themselves, but instead tracks an array of international companies that are involved in the industry. The ETF is comprised of 41 separate holdings, with the largest single holding being the United States-based crypto exchange Coinbase, making up 11.45% of the fund. This is closely followed by the largest Bitcoin miners, Marathon Digital Holdings, with 11.19, and Riot Blockchain Incorporated, which accounts for 10.41 of the total holdings. Showing a readiness for future acquisitions, the ETF currently sports a healthy 9.15% USD cash position. Alongside the release of the new ETF, BlackRock published a report that outlined three main areas of the market that are currently undergoing permanent changes. The paper details just how bullish BlackRock is on the crypto industry, stating that while most of the attention directed towards digital assets focus on the price and volatility, the actual value of blockchain is yet to be fully realized. I think that last sentence there is
Yes.
super important. I mean, really, all of the current buzz around crypto has been about prices. You hear stories of people making $1 million out of $100. Someone invested $1,000 in Doge, now they're retired, yada, yada, yada. All of those stories are the buzz stories that get people excited. But, I mean, really, underneath the face appeal of making lots of money from very little money, I mean, there's some seriously revolutionary tech with just how decentralized things can be, and the different uses of not just crypto but blockchain technology.
Yeah, I mean the price is just speculation because I mean I've said it last podcast. I kind of touched on it this podcast is I mean BlackRock said it perfectly. We've yet to realize the true potential of blockchain technology.
Right.
So it doesn't necessarily matter what the price of Bitcoin is today or tomorrow, or any asset in crypto. What matters is what it's worth once the utility is discovered and adopted. So
Mm-hmm.
we just have to wait and see what kind of real world problems Bitcoin is solving and what it will solve in the future, or any other, Ethereum, Litecoin, whatever.
Totally. Yep. So moving on to the next story here. Panama's crypto law: no legal tender but digital assets exempt from capital gains tax. I mean, this is
Ooh,
yeah, this is very interesting that Panama is making them exempt from capital gains tax, because there is a lot of tax money to be made in digital asset capital gains tax.
So it's interesting. We're seeing more and more countries kind of adopt this, and it's actually really smart because yes, they do miss out on the capital gains tax, but at the end of the day, if these individuals who usually have to live in these countries to get this, of course, that money is in the country at that point. So they are, redistributing it back into the economy most likely,
Right.
and it does help the nation flourish. So it's a really smart move, and yeah, we should go to Panama, Hobo.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a
Doesn't
beautiful
sound like
picture.
such a bad idea.
Got a nice
Um,
little condo there by the water.
yeah. Yeah. All right. So yes, this Panamanian Congressman Gabriel Silva, the sponsor of a bill passed on Thursday regulating the use of cryptocurrencies in the country, said the bill doesn't allow for any crypto to become legal tender, but makes possible free use of crypto as means of payment for any transaction. Some of the
Mm,
quotes listed here say we can't just establish Bitcoin because that would be unconstitutional, and if it's unconstitutional, then the project won't happen," said Silva, speaking on Twitter. Speaking on Twitter Spaces. That's interesting. Panama has no currency per its constitution, but has officially been on the U.S. dollar for more than a century. Prior to the bill, said Silva, it was illegal for digital asset companies to set up shop in Panama, but that would change once the legislation becomes law. Additionally, he said, the law treats crypto assets as foreign source income, which, in accordance with Panama's territorial taxation system, means no taxes on capital gains. The idea is to just respect the tradition that Panama has already had for many years, where the country taxes what happens inside of its borders, and the internet is obviously not in any country's borders, explained Felipe Echandi, a local crypto entrepreneur who assisted Silva in drafting the bill. President Laurentino Cortizo still must sign the bill for it to become law, but the legislation was passed by a 40-0 vote, suggesting good prospects for that to happen. I think a 100% majority vote is quite good prospects.
oof. Yeah, I mean it's a no-brainer, and especially for these kind of countries, it's just going to bring a lot of wealthy individuals to their country and help stimulate their economy for sure. So
Right.
really smart.
Yeah, I find it interesting that Panama, the way that they're looking at it is just maintaining the view that they've had for decades, which is things inside the borders are taxed, and things outside the borders are not taxed. I know it's definitely different from America, right? Like you're taxed however you make money for the most part. Like, of course, there's exceptions and certain strategies, etc. But for the most part, however you make money, you can be taxed on it. Doesn't matter if it's in the U.S. Doesn't matter if you were making money overseas, etc. So that's just something I did not know about Panama that I think is quite interesting.
Yeah, I also love that a lot of I don't want to say it's like a worldwide movement, but it's certainly starting to tiptoe towards that.
Right.
A lot of people are waking up to decentralization and also just managing your own funds. And I mean, depends how you feel about taxes as well, but um, it's really good to see that a lot of countries are adopting this kind of thought process because it really does invite the innovators and the the kind of people that you want in society to,
Mm-hmm.
come move there and contribute to that economy and that nation. So, I mean, hopefully we see this become more widespread across the world, which it's starting to look like. But I mean, it's really a breath of fresh air.
It is. It is. It's just interesting to watch history unfold. Every week there's something new.
Yeah, that's true.
But yeah, Panama's not
Yeah,
looking so bad right now.
Gabriel Silva, props to you.
Yeah.
And let's move on to the next story.
Yeah. So this story right here is talking about U.S. Congressmen accused of crypto pump and dump may face charges.
Oh
This,
boy, the
this is
pump and the dump.
this is quite the funny story. So we got Madison Cawthorn, who is a Republican representative from North Carolina, has been accused of being involved in the crypto pump and dump scheme involving the coin Let's Go Brandon. Pioneered by
Oh,
James Kutulas, Let's Go Brandon is a meme coin named after the chant that is used to mock U.S. President Joe Biden. Several regulatory agencies have accused Cawthorn of being involved in an alleged insider trading conspiracy concerning the short-lived crypto project. On the 29th of December 2021, Cawthorn took to Instagram to say, LGB legends, tomorrow we go to the moon. Definitely a questionable phrase by you, Mr. Cawthorn.
yeah. To the moon.
Yeah. Yeah. Oddly enough,
Man, I remember when that first came out, I was seeing like 10 to 15 Let's Go Brandon tokens a day,
right,
like
right.
being created. And I had no idea what it was at the time. I'm like, who the hell is Brandon?
Yeah, no, I didn't either. Um, it's funny because I remember earlier today I read an article talking about, it was saying like on-chain analysts are not seeing a slowdown of new token deployment despite the slumber that crypto has been in. And it was it was like phrased in a way where it's like people are still using crypto even though the prices are going down in the economy, yada yada yada. But I mean, what people fail to realize is, there are constantly tokens being deployed because anyone can deploy a token. I'd say definitely more than half of them are fraudulent tokens. You should not invest in any brand new token expecting anything other than to lose your money. But yeah,
Also, you should not deploy a token until you've researched with the SEC about securities and stuff like that as well.
right, 100%. There's all sorts of
Do
regulations
your
that,
research,
yeah, DYOR.
please.
Yeah, yeah, it's really
I mean,
interesting because, anyone can deploy a token, and the SEC has created a minefield of security laws. And, I'm sure there's thousands, if not, hundreds of thousands of people that have crossed lines and they have no idea because, really, there's a lot of nuances in the laws. It's really kind of a case-by-case thing as well. That it's just not super clear and anyone has access to it. And it's just a sticky situation.
yep. It is a mess, and just make sure you're doing your own research when anything is involved with your finances in crypto. Moving back to the story, it's interesting, but we'll read more about it and the specifics of it, but how's this any different from Nancy Pelosi and all the other, elected officials pumping and dumping stocks and
Right.
insider info?
Yeah.
It's corruption at the end of the day. It's the human condition. So.
Yeah. That's a very good point, right? Like, Nancy Pelosi is infamous for her insider trading. I believe it's either this guy or, oh no. It's either, I think it's Unusual Wills, the Twitter account. He has some conceptualized ETFs on his website. Like, he's got the inversed Kramer ETF, and he's got the Nancy Pelosi ETF, and it's essentially just like conceptualized ETFs of the positions that they have. And, the Nancy Pelosi ETF is always outperforming everything. She outperforms institutions. She is one of the best traders in the world, and that's obviously not a coincidence.
No, she's just the best ever.
Yeah, right. Right.
So.
But, yeah, getting on With the story here, oddly enough, on the 30th of December, NASCAR driver Brandon Brown said that the Let's Go Brandon crypto project will be his principal sponsor for the 2022 season. The announcement sparked a major uproar, and the Let's Go Brandon token jumped by 75%, while also reaching a market worth of $570 million. Which,
Whoa.
yeah, I mean, it sounds like a lot, but really, depends how much liquidity it had. I mean,
That's still a lot.
no, yeah, definitely. But at the same time, just with token economic models work, like you can have a token with $1,000 in it that technically has a $5 billion market cap.
Oh yeah, I'll tell you right now. If let me just make sure this is the correct Let's Go Brandon token. Uh, I don't know if this is it. This chart looks abysmal.
You want to send it through just so we can take a look at why you should never buy some random pump and dump.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if this is the correct one, it's currently at 23 million market cap with 514K in liquidity.
Yeah. Which, I mean, really only translates to half of that.
Pump and dump.
But, yeah.
Wow, that is super low liquidity.
Yeah, not the wisest decision, Mr. Cawthorn. It's unfortunate. So getting off the story, we got however, Brown's sponsorship arrangement with the project was rejected by NASCAR in January 2022. Unidentified insiders who had bought large number of the crypto coins in circulation soon sold them all. The meme coin's value plummeted to zero as a result, leaving the investors in despair. Catullus and other Let's Go Brandon insiders are accused of manipulating the token to orchestrate a pump and dump scam, according to a class action lawsuit filed by an unhappy investor. While Cawthorn was not listed as a defendant in the complaint, he was recognized as one of the project backers who had helped infiltrate the project, who had helped inflate the project's price immediately before it was dumped. Cawthorn, according to the watchdogs quoted in the report, had advanced non-public information of the Let's Go contract with Brown, which explains his posts and sentiments. They proposed that the U.S. Department of Justice and the Securities and Exchange Commission examine Cawthorn to see whether he broke any federal insider trading rules. The crypto project was relaunched after its failure in January, but has failed to take off, despite Catullus saying that the project now had measures to prevent whales from selling all of their stock at once. Let's Go Brandon is currently trading at roughly 95% below its high. And I mean,
Yeah.
really, this is the ultimate outcome that so many projects face. Really, there's a lot of crypto is based off of nothing fundamentally. Well, I mean, I don't know. I'd say a lot of DeFi is based off of nothing fundamentally, and maybe a lot is the wrong terminology. There's definitely a substantial amount. It's also easy to separate that from things that are legitimate, like, I mean, the whole Safe Moon scandal is, it's just vaporware. It's just hype. And,
Yeah, absolutely.
More often than not, all of those tokens face the same fate.
Yep, because there's always going to be the next Safe Moon or the next hype token that is just going to cause everybody to sell the current one and move on to the next
one. Right.
And yeah, it seems like that the one I linked you to is the relaunch of it, which oddly enough, it's got some massive red candles, so I don't think it worked out very well as far as preventing whales from dumping.
Great.
Yeah, so very nice.
Yep. Well done, Cawthorn. You did a great job.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Well, now would be a good time to shout out CoinScan.
Yes, indeed.
Because CoinScan helps you avoid pump and dumps. And it also allows you to avoid some of the scary things in DeFi, such as scams, honeypots, and massive sell pressure, usually in the form of malicious airdrops and stuff like that. So finding the right tools to protect your investment and capital in DeFi is very difficult in this space. I'd encourage you guys to check out CoinScan. And it's one of those tools that I think over time will help DeFi investors and also help purge the space of these pump and dump tokens like this, because it's all too often that we hear stories about people unfortunately losing money that they couldn't afford to lose in stuff like this. So
Right.
hopefully we purge the space of all this nonsense, and this will also help drive mass adoption in retail. So it starts with having like good legitimate tokens that help keep investors safe.
It really does. And, I mean, just taking a look at the CoinScan platform here, we are the only platform that is going to show you pending buys and sells. So, I mean, you see these massive dump candles even on Apecoin. You'll see these huge sales coming in before they're even completed. And if you are a veteran and you know how gas works, you can use that to your advantage and essentially front run and save yourself lots of money in your trading adventures. It's one of the many features we've got.
Absolutely. Well, Hobo, do we have anything else for today? I think that was everything.
Yeah, I think that wraps up this week's episode of the Crypto Club. Gons and I have plenty of fun doing this. We look forward to doing each episode every week. And we also look forward to just continuing to provide this to you. If there's anyone you guys would like to see on the podcast, feel free to leave a comment. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And we're also happy to talk about any recommended news topics. If there's something you want to hear us talk about, go ahead and hop on our Telegram, let us know, and we'll be more than happy to give our perspective on something.
Yeah, I think a couple of these articles were submitted by some of the users in the Telegram. So
yeah,
shout out to you guys.
100%. Yep. So this has been the team at CoinScan, and we will see you next week.